All right. Hey, welcome everybody to the Power30. While people are getting logged in, I want to wish everybody a happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm going to launch a quick poll just to get things started. Are you guys wearing green? Me and Eric are very festive today. But what are you guys doing? We did have a sales call today, and about half our team was not wearing green. They were severely reprimanded. We virtually pinched them. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it looks like about half and half. So for you guys not wearing green, here's your pinch. There you go.
Doing our part.
Doing our part. All right, I'll shut it down. Looks like most people are in here. Well, guys, welcome again to the Power30. If you guys have not been on the Power30 before, these are quick 30-minute sessions to give you some background and some insight into PayTrace, the industry, and some of the stuff that we're doing. And hopefully you get some information that'll help you become successful. Today, we have a special guest. You've seen him before. It is our National Sales Manager, Eric Jenks. Welcome.
Special.
Very special guest. You might notice that we are out of our studio for today. Probably no surprise to most of you. But, you know, due to the current circumstances, we are kind of telecommuting. We are working remotely. For Eric, that's pretty standard practice. He actually does not live in Spokane, Washington, where we're headquartered, but you get to see his home office over in Vancouver, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so hello from the Pacific Northwest. We're alive and well, and it's kind of a fun change up. I love actually being able to give Sam and the marketing team a hard time, but super happy to be chatting with folks today.
Yeah. Well, we do want to make a quick observation, right? We understand that right now is a pretty challenging time for most of you guys. Again, Eric mentioned we're doing okay. PayTrace, we do have a very strong remote culture as is. So operations are going as well. We just want to make sure everybody's staying healthy, staying well, right? And right, we still have the focus on making our merchants and our partners happy. So just want to call that out here. Cool. Thumbs up from Eric. Sweet. Well, let's go ahead and learn a little bit more about Eric and myself. We have Eric put together a little PowerPoint presentation for us today that I'm excited to present. We haven't done this before. This is new. James, you want to pull that up for us? Look at this. Let's learn a little bit about our hosts. Eric, do you want to give me an introduction? You wrote all this.
Yeah, I'm happy to. You guys may not know, but Sam Johnson is our sales trainer. He does the Power30 and a lot of other trainings, helping folks be more effective at selling, both from a technical standpoint. So I've loved the magical translator of obtuse technical jargon. He is the legitimate president of the Toastmasters 308 in Spokane Valley. So if you are not familiar with Toastmasters, you can ping Sam. If you're in the Valley, certainly would be welcome to do that. It's a great organization that promotes obviously public speaking, but good leadership skills and especially meeting management skills. And so we've benefited from that. And chief protector of cats. It's not the Humane Society that you volunteer at, is it?
No, it's an organization called Partners for Pets here. It's a cat adoption shelter.
Cat adoption shelter. And so, Sam, lovely wife, looking out for kitties that can't look out for themselves and have become cat people. And I'm actually crossing my fingers that the cat acts like a cat and walks through the screen uninvited at some point during this Power30.
Yeah, I've got a few fur children wandering around, so my apologies if there's a few distractions coming through today.
Yeah, I'm hoping for it, so I think it's great.
So Eric Jenks, as we mentioned, is our national sales manager, trying to make things a little better every day. Jack of all trades, master of none, I think was your slogan for a while. Co-chief of dad jokes. I don't know who the chief is. I'm going to guess it's our marketing manager, Patrick Seymour, is probably the chief of dad jokes, if you haven't met him yet.
He's very funny.
But so I really like this working remote. James, if we could close this down, I want to get a better view of Eric's office, because Eric, you've got a few things in the background there. If you want to stop talking, one specifically is your mug collection. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I'm a collector of Starbucks mugs, and to my wife's chagrin, I started collecting Starbucks mugs back in 2000, during just at the tail end of the first series, and I have over 200 now, and these are the recent ones. Some of these are places that I visited. Some of them are places that my friends have visited because they know about it. And but I love it. It's a conversation starter, right? People, oh, I've been there, or I haven't been there. I want to go there. So we use it that. I do drink from the Starbucks mug. I love Starbucks. I love coffee. It's just a great way to have a conversation with friends. So been collector of Starbucks mugs. There's one in particular. This one right here is the Spokane coffee mug. This was a limited first edition mug, and it took me 15 years to track someone down who was willing to part with it. Some people spend ridiculous amount of money. I fortunately either Goodwill or finding them at Starbucks new. It's I haven't gone crazy, but well, maybe I have. I have 200 Starbucks.
A little bit. So. A little bit. Not gonna lie. Now when I travel, every time I'm at a Starbucks, I always look to see if there's a mug for you there. Yeah, boss man.
This is fun.
Well, enough of that. I want to get into the meat and potatoes of this. And I didn't actually mention this, but if you guys have questions or comments, feedback as we go, through today's call, especially for Eric, right? We want to keep him on his toes. You should see a little Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. It looks like Tate has already found that button because he already sent us a dad joke. If we have some time at the end, we might call that one out. So stay tuned. But right, as those start popping up, we're going to be talking a lot about some pretty interesting topics here. We want to hear from you, right? So let's get some engagement. So our conversation today, Eric, is going to be around Interchange updates, specifically for April's card brand updates.
Yeah.
You've been doing a lot of research over the past weeks, months on this. What types of facts can you share with our audience today?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things that I'd like to talk about. I mentioned earlier, and I should apologize. Some of you might have seen my LinkedIn post where I talked about middle-aged white men talking about obtuse, esoteric financial reimbursement methods. And so obviously in this call, I'm the middle-aged guy. Sam's our resident millennial. So I just apologize up front, Sam. But you know what? It's Interchange, and honestly, it's like for a long time that was like one of the most boring, subjects. But I've been doing this for a long time. I went into the archive. I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is the 2003 Visa operating regs. And back in the day when I started, this was what was given to me by a buddy that said, look, if you want to be successful in the industry, you need to know how the rules work. Right? If you want to know how this game is played, you better understand the rules. And so as a young college kid, I took this book home and I read it. And I've been reading these things ever since then. And, early spring, we got an update from the card brand enhancements. On the Visa side, that PDF was 179 pages long of just changes that were happening. And most of those had nothing to do with pricing, right? They're just things that are changing in the industry. So if you're new to the industry, I'll just tell you one thing. The one fun thing that I've loved about being in merchant services is it's always changing. There's always something to learn. If you're in sales, really, I would encourage you to dig into Interchange. It will make the difference. It's how the game is played. These are the rules. And effective April 17th, some of the rules are changing. I'm going to go ahead and maybe kind of go over some of that. I've recently been kind of looking at a ton of articles, and if you follow LinkedIn, you might have seen Bloomberg had an article. Sam, how far back was that? Like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
It felt like it was early, and man, it blew up. Suddenly it was on the Wall Street Journal. It was on the Business Insider, Payments Network, digital transaction picked it up, and everybody was talking about interchange. And I thought, wow, we're cool now. I mean, mainstream media is talking about interchange. I don't even know what this is, but a lot of that data was secondary data, right? I mean, it was people talking about the things that Visa was talking about. So I want to spend just a couple minutes just kind of highlight what's actually happening before I give you my opinion, right? And give you what PayTrace can do about it. So is that okay?
Yeah. Do you mind if I do a quick temperature check on the audience?
Yeah, do it.
Let me ask you, to our viewers right now, how many of you guys have actually had a chance to review some of these interchange updates, right? Many of you guys that work for processors, you probably got notifications from the card brands, right? This is what's changing. This is what you can expect. Just want to get an idea. Let's go ahead and take maybe 5 more seconds. This is a yes or no question. Should be pretty easy. Do 3, 2, 1. Okay. So yeah, about a 60-40 split. Looks like most of you in some capacity have had a chance to take a look at the April card brand updates. And some of you say no, right? That's why you're here today. You want to learn about this. So you're in the right spot. So Eric, I'll pass it back to you.
Sounds good. So I'm going to talk about some of this. When I was going over this with Sam earlier, he's like, man, some of these numbers are just like hard to visualize when I ramble a whole bunch of numbers off. So I'm going to trust our marketing team put together a PowerPoint. Please don't necessarily get fixated on that. And I think, Sam, we're happy to distribute this after the call, right? And so, yeah, so if you want it, let us know, but we'll kind of go over some of these. On the Mastercard side, we have a good relationship with them. There are some things that are changing, but I would say that in general, we didn't see a lot. So there is a new interchange category that's coming out for what they call their VIP program, VIP variable interchange program. There is that's a B2B program as well. There is a new category that's coming out for enterprise travel that's coming out, and there's going to be a new category for daycare, and so Merit One, so that's keyed daycare, going to get some special rates. They had previously had a data rate for healthcare, and that's going the way of the dinosaur. So not a whole lot of changes. In fact, if anything, there's some introduction for some changes there, and maybe 1 or 2 that are going away. So from our perspective, not a lot of changes on the Mastercard. Would you agree, Sam? Yeah, he said yes. Yep. So. Not so, and of course, I would just say preferred perspective. A year ago, MasterCard gave me some heartburn, right? I mean, there was rumors going around that level 2 was going away with MasterCard. They had a lot of changes. It ended up being a lot of smoke and not a lot of fire. Not a lot of things actually ended up changes, but they ended up aligning some categories. But a lot of changes from MasterCard a year ago, and MasterCard kind of in the most part in the clear. Now on the Visa side, want to look at that. Not so there. A lot of things happening. I think one of the biggest things that's just interesting to me is that they're moving some of their most expensive rates to a new term called non-qualified, which is just very interesting to me because sales reps have called these things non-qualified for a very long time. And now Visa's kind of taking on that nomenclature to like represent that. So things that we used to see on statements called standard, signature standard, even one of my favorite rates, and this is kind of near and dear to my heart, ERIF, interchange, going the way of the dinosaur and now becoming known as non-qualified, and in large part becoming more expensive. You can see on there some rates that are going up, some of them very significantly. ERIF going from 2.3% to 315. I mean, that's an 85 basis point, if my math's correct, increase. So pretty significant. Some of those changes actually even bleeding over into the B2B space. And so we're seeing some of those rate changes. If you want to kick over the next slides, James. Small business credit going away altogether, but then those tiers 1, 2, 3, and 4 for small business, becoming non-qualified, right? So we've seen even a rate increase in that B2B space, 295 to 315. A lot of other changes. Some of these we're not really experts on, or I'm not experts on, so we don't do a lot of supermarket volume, but there's a lot of changes in the supermarket space. They're actually seeing some increases, but more decreases in that space, but the volume thresholds needed to get those rates increasing. And so just some market correction there, I think. And then fuel, we're not in the petrol space very much, and seeing the number of MCC codes that qualify for that becoming more focused, narrow, and a rate increase on the commercial side for petrol. Not very much, but 205 to 2.2. Rounding out the changes at Visa, we see a lot of category changes. If you want to kick over the next one, James. They have some from things they call the small business products. I mentioned those are going away, but they also have the series for the corporate and purchasing cards, and you'll see a whole series of those. We're going to see some changes right now in April, and also some of these changes dragging out into the October release, right? So in the fall release, they're going to continue some of these things. One of the things that we're going to be seeing is what we used to call retail, business retail, is now going to be known as product 2. And you're going to see that consistently. So product 2, it's got in-person swiped rates. Product 1 is the old card not present, right? And so those would be your old key enter rates. They're also renaming a couple things to travel, and then that consistency of moving things that they used to call standard over to non-qualified. All of those, right, are over the board. So you'll notice that the retail stuff, we're actually seeing some decreases, right? So that swipe going from 2.2 down to 1.9, right? So that's a 30 basis point savings in the in-person. And the card not present, man, we're just seeing that consistency with the standard card not present going to 2.25 up to 2.65.
Yeah. So a lot of changes on the Visa side, and I think you brought up Mastercard's changes from last October, Eric, and we saw kind of a consolidation or a simplifying of a lot of their rates, right? Especially in the B2B space. It seems like a pretty fair assumption that Visa's kind of doing the same thing, taking a lot of these higher interchange buckets and just let's lump them all together. Let's make it simple and putting it as non-qualified.
Yeah, there's been a lot of them, so that's the data from the issuers, and we feel very fortunate. I've had relationships with folks that are over at MasterCard and Visa for a long time, and then working directly with the processors to get some of this directly from the horse's mouth. Then from the opinion side, it's like, why are they doing those things? Well, I'd love to hear from you. Like, why do you think that they're doing that? I would say from our perspective, understanding how interchange works, right? So these are monies that are being taken from the merchant, right? And they're basically moving over to the issuing bank, right? So for the bank that issued the credit card. So I've actually, it's one of my pet peeves when people say Visa's making more money on this, right? Because Visa does make money, but this is not the money that Visa is making, right? This is going back to the issuing bank, right? So I would just say my team, we try to be very careful about that, because I would say that's not accurate, right? And so there are a lot of inaccuracies in that case when what we're seeing in this national media, and I get it, they don't get it. They don't do interchange all the time. But I encourage you guys to be very careful in your language. Make sure you understand that. From our perspective, last couple of months, man, we've seen a huge spike in fraud, right? And we're seeing a lot of people in that card not present fraud experience, a lot of fraud attempts, phishing fraud, all these types of things. You don't have to go very far. You don't have to take my word for it. Just, look and see. With the introduction of EMV, almost globally, the fraud moved from in-person to card not present. So it doesn't surprise me that some of those expenses are going up in the card not present world, because one of the components, and certainly we don't want to oversimplify it, this is not the only component of interchange, but one of the components of interchange is it's a reimbursement back to the bank for the risk that they take. And we are seeing billions of dollars, right? Not millions, billions of dollars move from retail fraud to card not present fraud. it's a natural course then to see those rates become more expensive.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have seen some articles out there like, hey, you know, Visa's trying to sucker punch people, make more money. Visa's making money regardless of whether the banks make money or not. So I'm just like, I don't know about that, just to be honest. They want to make more money, and how they make more money is to have more Visa transactions, right? They want to promote Visa into new markets, right? That's why we're seeing MasterCard offer new rates for real estate, right? And that's why we see some of these programs that are initiated. We're going to see more of those in October, where they're trying to redefine what an emerging market is and try to take advantage of those markets. Yeah, time for another poll, or should I?
No, I think let's break it up a little bit, because you did just dump a lot of really good information. I'll let you know it was good information, Eric. But this, right, we see this having a very real impact. This is taking in effect exactly a month from today, right? On April 17th. And our merchants and our partners are going to have an effect on this, right? Yeah. They're going to feel something. So to get a better idea of exactly how this should affect folks. Oh, and my poll disappeared. You know, if you guys don't mind, we'd like to know kind of how you're pricing your merchants right now. Let me see if I can get this poll set up. But are you pricing more of a interchange pass-through, right? Are you pricing more of a flat rate pricing, or is it more of like a bucketed or tier pricing? So if you open up that Q&A box, you should be able to send in some responses. We want to hear from you, right? To get a better idea of how we should kind of position what we're going to talk about. So let's go ahead and take a minute. See some responses coming in. Oh my gosh, floodgates are open. Yeah, so it looks like majority of folks do kind of interchange plus, interchange pass through, right? A few folks do flat rate, right? That's good data for us.
Yeah.
Right. So folks, right? How are these changes, Eric, to kind of wrap up this interchange conversation? How do you expect these to affect these different pricing models?
Yeah, for sure. So let's just talk about it first outside of PayTrace, right? So just the market in general. Card not present is going to become a lot more expensive. I mean, there's just no getting away from that, especially Visa. It leads the market. They have the largest market share. We anticipate the statements are going up. Effective rates are going up. You can't have IRF go from 2.3 up to 3.15, an 85 basis point increase, without that affecting the merchant's paycheck, right? And so a lot of that, we anticipate the card not present environment is going to become more expensive. Why does that even matter? Well, more and more business. Look at how much business is going e-commerce right now, right? Amazon's blowing up. Folks are ordering their delivery right now for their pizza via online, right? And so the world is moving more towards this, environment, and that expense is going to be very real to them, I think. Now the world inside PayTrace, I'll just tell you, a lot of these are legitimately non-qualified transactions, right? I would say in general, when I'm selling and I see standard or IRF, or now what we're just going to call non-qualified, it prompts a lot of questions in my mind of like, why is that happening? Because generally it means there's some kind of best practice that's not happening, right? And so I would encourage folks, dig into Interchange and dig into your merchants' processing statements and their environments and find out why they're seeing those rates. In a massive oversimplification, PayTrace can make it go away, right? And so PayTrace was designed with merchants in mind to say, how can we leverage technology to help merchants follow best practices? You're like, well, Eric, how do you even do that? And why isn't everyone doing that? Well, good questions. Like, for example, how many times have you talked to your merchants and said, please, when you're keying in a transaction, I'm begging you, put in the zip code. It'll make a big difference. Well, right now for consumer cards, that's an 85 basis point decision, right? It will literally be almost 1% more expensive if they don't do that, right? Well, if they have a terminal, their staff may put it in, maybe they don't, maybe it's with the wrong zip code, right? Who knows? PayTrace is technology. We can set that as a default and make sure the merchant gets those best rates all the time. So all the way from consumer cards, all the way up to level 3, we practice interchange optimization, and it's really helping merchants get the best possible rate. Quit leaving money on the table. And so that's going to be a really big deal over the next couple of weeks, because those non-qualified rates, the floor is falling in a sense, right? The spread between the best rate and the worst rate is actually getting bigger, right? And so if you are utilizing a technology that does not consistently get you the best rates, it's going to cost more. The effective rate's going to be bigger. The pain the merchant feels when that money is sucked out of their account is going to be bigger, right? And so what PayTrace does is allow, in some circumstances, to shrink that up. Now they're getting their better rates, right? And that's, as you guys as consultants can position that. I know we're coming up on time, so I'm just going to briefly, it was like impossible to talk about interchange in 30 minutes, so I apologize. I wanted to tell you, we're working with a company, a friend of ours, that's wants to put a tool in your hands for statement analyzer. And the new tool will actually analyze what is level 3 savings. And I know that's been a question that many of you have asked. And Sam and the marketing team were working to put this together and get it in your hands. I'd like to have it in your hands the next 30 days. So we're just teasing that out. If you haven't subscribed to the blog and that's curious, subscribe to the blog. If you're watching this on YouTube, probably subscribe as well, and be watching for our next webinar, where we actually show you how you can plug in a statement and then click one button and figure out how much am I leaving on the table because I'm not optimizing interchange. So we know that's a big deal. Some of you guys have been doing this for years, and you can just do it in your head, right? You guys are really weird, and we're glad to have you here. But that's not normal, right? So we want to make that easy for you. Sam's looking at me like,
yeah. I want to restate that, Eric, because what you said was a pretty powerful resource that we have coming up, is that we understand that not only for merchants, but for you guys, right? Interchange is super complex. Eric showed you a book of 100 and some odd pages. I don't know how many of you are actually reading that book, but it's nuts, right? This resource that we have coming up is going to make it super simple, right? Literally, it's going to get you some very accurate rates based on merchant statements. So is it a fair statement, Eric, to say, if you're interested in learning more about this tool in the next, hopefully 30 days, right, reach out to our sales team?
Yeah, if you want to be on the front of the list, we'll be talking about it.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, so we're super excited because we've had people asking for it for years. And honestly, one of the things that's difficult for us is interchange is only one of the components that you guys deal with, right? You have your own cost. How much does an authorization cost? How much does a settlement cost? There's a ton of other costs that factor into that, and we are not experts in that. But the merchant, when they ask about effective rate, they want the big picture, right? Mm-hmm. And this tool allows you to customize that and give a pretty accurate thing. We're way up on time. I do want to also just mention, if you want those numbers, I would encourage you to go get it. I've checked the Visa website, I've checked the Mastercard websites. They have not been updated, right? So they're still showing April rates from last year. We're happy to get this in your hands. What else, Sam? Do we have time for a question?
Yeah, well, I'd like to take a few questions because we always do that. I do want to call out real quick, though. We do have a tool right now to help you navigate some of these interchange rates. James, if you want to pull up our website really quick. Right on our website, paytrace.com, paytrace.net/interchange optimization. We've got charts that show Visa and Mastercard's rates. So if you go down about halfway to that page or click on that link, James, for us, right, we're going to update this. In April, we will have the new rates reflected on this page. So it's still current for today's interchange rates. So check out some of these, right, especially where it affects on these commercial types of credit cards, right? This is a really great resource. We want you all to stay tuned on this.
I've used that with merchants. It's a great sales tool to be able to leverage and say, I'm not making this stuff up, right? I mean, let me show you this. It's done in a really elegant way, optimal, less optimal, like really warm and engaging ways, and educating the merchant. And then that allows you to come in for the close, right? So I think that honestly, if it's not one of your favorites, you should make that one of your favorites. So.
Yeah. Let's go ahead. I know we're just slightly over, but let's knock out like maybe 2 questions, Eric.
Sure, let's try it.
And if your question isn't answered, guys, I forgot to mention this, our sales team will follow up with you within the next few days. So get those questions in if you do have them. One of them was...
We'll answer all the questions, yeah.
Yeah, everything. So one question, and we kind of touched on this, was specifically around level 3, because a lot of people, right, relate PayTrace with level 3.
Sure.
So with these changes from card not present going up for the non-qual rate, right?
Yeah.
This is legitimately in some cases going to be 125 gaps of basis points, right?
I think that's how the math works. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that this is a good opportunity to start talking with, right, some merchants, maybe revisit with some prospects. Is that a fair?
I would.
Question?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially if you have the ability to kind of back at prior statements and you're seeing standard IRF charges. You know, obviously we know things change every month, but that's an indicator, man, their bill's going up. Interchange optimization even more valuable.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll take one more. Let's go ahead and pull up. My goodness, there's been a lot of them on here. Peter's asking, won't it become more difficult to identify where merchants are going wrong if everything is now going to be rolled into this so-called non-qualified category?
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, so I would just say this, you know, we have looked at this in regards to, you know, how some of the processors are looking at it, right? So some of those front ends, names like you would know, TSYS, Global, First Data, they still have their card type, right? Or maybe their category code, it's a number. So even though the title is generic, non-qualified, usually you can get out your decoder ring and kind of identify what type of non-qualified is it. At the end of the day, nothing replaces a conversation with the merchant, because even knowing what type it is doesn't answer what are they doing wrong. Like, so understanding their equipment and their processing environment and how their staff actually, not how they were trained, but how they're actually processing it. You know, those are questions that you get to jump in that consultative role to find out. It's going to be hard. I mean, it's certainly, you know, processors, I would, you know, this is where we start attributing motive. Do they make it hard to understand? Man, it sure feels like it sometimes. It's like they use these, you know, acronyms and codes that it's just like, what does that even mean? And so, yeah, it just acknowledge it is hard. It's not impossible, but nothing replaces having a conversation with your merchant.
Yeah, exactly. So, team, we do appreciate you hanging on here for an extra few minutes. Eric, I want to thank you. That was a great conversation. We will have this call available on YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, go ahead and check that out. Just search for PayTrace in the search bar. And if you do have any follow-up questions, again, you can reach out to us at sales@paytrace.com. Again, I hope everybody stays healthy and safe, and have a fantastic rest of your week, everybody.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it.